Welcome all. We've all made it to 2025. Let's see how it all goes. Pursuant to the provisions of 2.26.030, the Metropolitan Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Metro Human Relations Commission may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law of certiorari. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the Commission. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. So I'm calling this meeting to order, and we are confirming quorum. Yay, team. And do we have any public comments today? No, we have no public comments. We have two sets of minutes to review. Any comments or questions about the two sets of November and December minutes by anyone? I have a question for the December one. There's a line under financial update that says Commissioner Abolfazi expressed concern about potential burnout without any context. And I just was wondering if there was any context to that line or transition to the next line so that we have, or we strike that. Otherwise,
thank God she's leaving in 3 months.
No, I'm quite. I just want to make sure that for the record, if there's any burnout related to anything of pertinence, we should have it.
No, burn rate. Oh, that's right. Burn rate. Jeff.
Okay.
It's how you spend the
How you spend the money? Burn rate. Okay. Let's. Okay.
Spending your money. Burn rate is the percentage or the rate at which you are spending your funds, and if you don't spend it, will you be stuck? Exactly.
Okay, then you will.
Then you will burn your money.
Okay.
And so it was burn rate, no burnout. Everyone is.
Thank you.
Happy and healthily engaged in the commission.
I'm glad that we clarified burnout versus burn rate. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Can we get a motion to approve both sets of minutes? A second, please.
Second.
And we shall now vote. All yay. Anybody? Those who approve say yay, please.
Yay.
Any nays? Any abstentions? So moved unanimously. Okay. Financial update from E.D. Tucker.
What you have right now is not correct. Our budget from the previous allocation was misapplied to our budget, and we are still in the process of trying to true up the budget so it would make sense to us. But we're still moving forward with what was approved in the budget to hire the additional people and the reclassifications. But if you notice over in the variance, you see a lot of, you see all of the red. Those are not correct. So hopefully we will get it corrected one day. But they misapplied our budget allocations to different line items, and we're in the process of moving those back that we have met a couple of times with finance.
Commissioner Colvin.
Is there a timeline in which we'll have this circled out?
We're at finance's whim of fixing it.
Commissioner Trober.
So will this create any issues with the budget being spent or the expenses that you incur on a month-to-month basis since the incorrect budget has been applied?
No, we're having to do that. If it is a problem, we're doing that individual. But no, we're still processing payment of all our invoices that come due.
Other questions or concerns for the ED about the financial report? Okay. Moving on, I am going to flip-flop new business with old business due to the anticipated length of the discussion about the conciliation agreement. So let's jump down to new business for committee updates. The executive committee will continue its Title VI work as of this starting this month again after the new year and the break, and we will have our executive committee within 2 weeks on Friday. Bylaws and rules, updates, and
Yes, they were. Bylaws and rules were to be voted on today. I'm going to throw that over to Matthew. He needs a little bit more time.
Yeah, so the legal department is currently in the process of reviewing the amended rules and regulations. It's going through several layers of review in the legal department, and because these amendments, they deal with significant issues like investigations of complaints and hearings that this body may conduct, we just want to make sure that it's in compliance with all the applicable laws. So we're just requesting some additional time and a deferral to next month's meeting so that we can give our recommendations prior to then.
okay, thank you, Matthew. Yes, Charles.
So one question on that, because at our last meeting, Daniel Yoon mentioned potentially amending our bylaws to adjust the quorum requirements. Is that also in process?
And that actually will require an ordinance because it's going to be amending the Metro Code. But yes, that is as well.
And so does this still allow for commissioners, if they haven't yet sent in questions or comments about the revisions, to do so until next month? So commissioners, if you have any comments or questions, please send them to Daniel.
Yes, send them to Daniel, and please send them as soon as possible so that we can have legal's review of it to vote on next month, unless you want to move it out another month. Because if you send it to us after we've already sent him everything, they may have to review what it is that's being sent. So, yes, we will take them, but we need them pretty quickly.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Can, if there's anything that comes up out of y'all's deliberations, is there a way to just work with the bylaw committee immediately or, in their next meeting or something like that so that we don't wait for the next full commission meeting to, have to go through that process in case there's stuff that you guys need to look at?
Well, our intention was, former chair, is that once he commented, we would analyze it and we would talk to them back and forth so that we would resolve it before we brought it back to you.
Yes.
I guess just a small follow-up along those same lines, thinking about sort of if the quorum, just something as quote-unquote simple as the quorum question would actually require something at a level outside of this office. Have you even had a chance, or has the legal office had a chance yet to even see if there are any kind of chunkier issues that may come up in the process of your review that would require passage or some type of amendment of language outside of this body as well?
To answer your question briefly, no. I think the difference with the quorum issue is that that's set forth specifically in the Metro Code, right. So it would require an amendment, whereas these rules and regulations are adopted pursuant to authority that's been delegated in the Metro Code already. So, of course, part of our review will be determining whether what's in the rules and regulations is consistent with the Metro Code. Right. But I don't anticipate that it'll require any legislation or anything like that.
Thank you. Any other comments? Again, thank you to the Bylaws and Rules Committee and in the spirit of Erwin Vennick for getting all that work done. So let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the 60th anniversary event. E.D. Tucker.
We are moving forward with the event. Our keynote would be Sanu Shandy, a senior advisor with Democracy Forward, career civil rights attorney that will be sharing with us the documentaries and of past commissioners, and their words will be ready by then. We have a special request of not only your attendance, but we would also ask that as many of you who would commit to being a table host, and a table host would be responsible for getting 9 other individuals at your table. And any of you that would do that, please reach out to Crystal as soon as possible so that we can coordinate that. We're looking to have a good luncheon, Music City Center. I think it's going to be a great event to mark the history of 60 years of MHRC in Nashville, and I think it'll be very informative too. So particularly some of the earlier legislation that MHRC was part of. One of the first equal employment ordinances passed in Metro was championed by the MHRC, and that is like in 67 or something. So it goes back a little bit.
Okay, great. Any questions or concerns? I think we just should keep getting that information over and over again in our inboxes so that we're aware of them. Thank you so much.
Just a quick
Yes.
question. When is the last date to register that we need to tell people?
Can,
Crystal's over here.
So the event is February 10th, which is a Monday. So I'm going to go ahead and say, in a very kind way, February 3rd, that Monday before, so that we know how many folks are actually going to be attending the event. Is there anyone here who is already interested in being a table host? Perfect. Miriam, Linda, Darren, Alicia, and Dr. Ben. Anyone else?
no, Jeff also.
Jeff,
If y'all would hold
perfect.
up your hands one more
Yes,
time,
sorry.
just hold them up.
Taryn, Jeff, Ben, Miriam, Garlinda, Larea, and Alicia. Perfect. Beautiful. So we will send you the information for the table host and the registration link. Please make sure it is a free event for the public as well. This is a free event. There's going to be wonderful food, and we're really excited about the guests. So please register. Help us forward that registration out to folks as well.
Thank you, Kathy. Community engagement.
That's me again. Happy New Year, and we are in MLK Day weekend. It has crept on us really quickly, but we are so excited about this week's events. The week actually we'll start it off Sunday with a Women of Faith panel. You can catch that on Facebook. If you go look at MLK Day events, they did a virtual event. It was wonderful. Please go and watch that if you have the time. But we are starting Wednesday with Banner Day. It is the MHRC's Banner Day that we hold for MLK Day weekend. Right now, we have 10 groups registered, but we welcome any schools, sororities, fraternities, organizations that would like to create a banner. We use recycled materials from turnip green so that you can come create your banner to carry during the march on Monday the 20th. So this is a free event for the community. You can come create your banner. It is so amazing and awesome. It's a great time to kind of do art and talk and set the mood for what we're doing this MLK Day weekend. So that is Wednesday at 6 p.m. The Thursday is the gala. If you've not already gotten tickets, unfortunately, it is sold out. However, please keep it in mind for next year. We always tell people this is the #1 event that always gets sold out, but just keep it in mind for next year. Friday, we have our Labor and Human Rights breakfast as well. And then Saturday is the Youth Symposiums. This year, Crystal and I are co-chairs for the Youth Symposium. We are asking for volunteers if you would like to come and volunteer with the youth. It is 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have a day full of amazing activities and workshops for young people. If you know a young person that you think could benefit from workshops or just history lessons, we will actually be having the opportunity where young people get to sit next to civil rights leaders and ask them questions about their youth. It'll be kind of like a private fireside chat, as well as other workshops about sustainability. A youth organizer training by the Southern Movement Committee which is going to be really awesome. And we always have a vibe session, which is a DJ and some fun stuff for the young people as well. All ages are welcomed. We have an intergenerational panel at the beginning of the Youth Symposium to kick it off. So please register. If you can volunteer, I'd love to see your hand raised if you have some time on Saturday. If not, if you want to get back to me. Oh, yes, Mary. So we start at 8:30. That's when breakfast starts, but program starts at 9. So we really need help with registration in the morning. So if you can be there just to help young folks kind of check in. And then during the day, it's just pointing people to where everything is located throughout the day. Yeah. 9 to about 3. It really, vibe session starts at like 2:15, so that's when the kids just get to hang out. So really from 9 to 2, if you want to, if you want to have some time to volunteer. Yeah, it's perfect. Please, please, please help us get young people signed up. Again, it is a free event. We provide breakfast, we provide lunch, we provide snacks, and all this programming for free. So help us get it out there. All of this will be published on our socials as well as in an email going out to y'all to just help us blast that registration link. The rest of the things, Sunday, we have a worship service at 3 p.m. at First Baptist. It's going to be a wonderful worship service. And then Monday is the actual march and rally to the convocation. So the youth rally begins at 8 a.m. We are on Jefferson Street. It gets shut down beforehand, so make sure you figure out how you want to get there because parking can be tricky. But we start at 8 a.m. Our march begins promptly at 9 a.m. We march to TSU at Gentry Center, where we will have convocation. This year's guest speaker is Dr. Black. You may have caught him in his viral speech in Atlanta. So he will be joining us. I'm really excited about it. And yes, any questions, comments, concerns? Yes. Capitol Hill, yes. First Baptist Capitol Hill. Yes. Wonderful. And you can visit mlkdaynashville.com for the full schedule of events and registration links. But we'll make sure we get those links over to you as well.
What's the location for the youth symposium Saturday?
MLK High School. We'll be at MLK Magnet High School.
And is there registration day of for the youth event on Saturday or only prior to?
There is. We just want to make sure everyone has breakfast and lunch. So we are asking folks to register beforehand so we know we have enough meals. We always try to order a couple more, but we want to make sure we have enough meals for everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy, for all that information and organizing. Sounds spectacular. Our next item is the ED's report.
Don't have one per se, just want to make a couple of comments. One is so grateful to continue to honor MHRC's long-standing participation in the MLK Day events in Nashville. That I see we have our current legal rep, former ED, Mel, who is also part of that. One of the things for me that I am so fearful of about MLK Day is when people conversate and attempt to change the day to a day of service. To me, that minimizes and has nothing to do with the legacy of MLK. If you're going to paint a mural, pick up some trash, you undermine the significance of this human being and that individual's commitment to human and civil rights. It is, and I say that not only as a African American, but I say that as a Black Baptist preacher, that it is insulting and minimizing to express the recognition of the day to honor the life of MLK in anything other than human and civil rights. That's just one man's opinion.
Thank you, Edie Tucker. And I will add, because this April will be the 50th anniversary at the end of the Vietnam War. And at the end of MLK's life, he was anti-war. Significantly, we often forget that. So that's a part of his legacy that I would like to note and comment as well. Okay, so thank you all. And now we will move to an update about the conciliation agreement by Ashley.
And as she gets set up, we continue to deal with this to ensure that the agreement is adhered to in the way it was originally agreed upon. And we continue to move through issues that Ashley's going to cover. We were advised that effective Friday, the interim ED, Paulette Coleman, resigned. And so they're in the process now of figuring out the leadership and going forward, which should in no way impact what our goal has been from the very beginning of seeing the conciliation agreement through to the end.
Now, were they in the middle of a search and you guys were permanent?
Yes.
Garlinda Burton, wanted to know, were they in the midst of a search, or were they at Metro Arts in a search process while Dr. Coleman was interim?
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. And she has resigned before her interim, before they hired somebody?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we get privy to any information on why she submitted that resignation, or is that private?
That would be up to them.
Is it, okay, just wonder if we can request or something.
Is there any effect on the payment from the conciliation agreement? Oh, you're going to go over that from her resignation. That was going to be mine.
Oh, no, no.
It's not going to delay anything. Okay.
Crystal, we might need to get the tech again. So, I have slides, but some, they were up and now they're not. And so the button didn't work. Just want to let y'all know what I'm doing and the reason for the delay.
But it was teed up.
I mean, I can start some without. Kathy, when he's done that, if you can make sure that it says room PC on the device selection, yeah. So I'll start by just recognizing that we have several arts commissioners in the room. So Commissioner Hardin, Commissioner Lefkowitz, Commissioner Yu, Commissioner Jester, and Commissioner Khalil, as well as Davey said earlier, Mel Fowler-Green, who served as our external counsel throughout the Title VI report. So really appreciate making time to be here. I know that there's a lot on your schedule this week, and we wanted to invite you and any others that might be viewing online, as well as other folks from the arts community that might be viewing online, because we believe that the slide deck, if I can get it up here, will help with the preparation as we move toward the Metro Council meeting next week, and just sort of informational purposes. And we talk about the Arts Commission so often in the MHRC here as well. We just wanted to make an opportunity to kind of connect lines across commissions. So we appreciate y'all being here. And I will also say we are aware of open meeting rules. And so to follow those, any questions that you have will be for the MHRC, not for each other as commissioners. Well, so what we have here, when we get the slides going, we have a couple of slides that just are about the status of the conciliation agreement, primarily about 3 elements in there, and then a slide deck about the policies that were passed by the Arts Commission. I'll say I hope that this is likely the last time that we'll be doing like a deep dive into the policies of another department, as we are very close to completing this part of the conciliation agreement. So the door just opened, and I really hoped it was going to be the tech support. So, I'm just going to go off memory of what my first slide is about. So there's 3 primary elements of the conciliation agreement, and you have handouts that should go in order of how we're going to move through them. So we're going to start with number 6 of the agreement, which is that Metro Legal was working on a legal manual that's really a resource for board and commission members as well as department heads. We've talked about this at some of our past meetings, and we are excited to report that it is completed in full. We talked about a distribution plan, and we printed copies for you all here. We recommend adding this to your commission binder that we know some of you keep. Maybe at another meeting, we'll look at again more closely. We're not going to do a page by page here. I know Davey wants to say a bit about this, so I'm going to kick the mic over to him.
Yes, this is another one of the significant issues that I think as a result of the compliance agreement that that this is a critical document that I think has been a long time coming, and I'm grateful for the Department of Law of doing this, particularly Laura Fox was the point person. We were able to offer multiple comments that all of them were taken into consideration. I think this is an excellent document. I think if you even spend a little time with it, it would contextualize your own role as a commissioner. There'll be ongoing trainings around it. A person can even get through running a meeting in this with this document. I think in one of the places it talks about the bylaws and Robert's Rules of Order, and it gives you everything that you really need to know about keeping a meeting in order. But it also explains the different types of boards and commissions and what the different powers that they have, how they operate. I can't say enough that this is a great document that would empower the citizenry that fill these civic spaces, that when most boards and commissions go along with the regular everyday work, but when there is a thing, I think this document will help those boards and commissions process through that thing with a lot more confidence. So again, this is a result of the conciliation agreement. This is something that gets to live on as hopefully we're moving on past this on toward our next thing.
Great. So the conciliation agreement, of course, had requirements of all parties involved. And so this was Metro Legal's primary deliverable. And it is also available to anybody by request. And so if you know of somebody who's really eager to get their hands on it, it is shareable. So number 7 in the agreement, I will go through next. And so there's greater details of what I'm going to highlight here in this chart that you have. You've seen this before. We've also shared this with the Arts Commission and their staff and leadership. It's the color-coded document of yellow, green, red, where red indicates deadlines that have been missed or problems. Green is we're good to go. Yellow is we're still working on it. So number 7 in the conciliation agreement was really about Metro Arts finalizing any new grant policies. This was not a requirement of the conciliation agreement to develop new policies, but if there were new policies, this was the piece that applied to it. So that Metro Arts would finalize these by January the 6th, which was last Monday. It became apparent in November that the final step of approval by Metro Council was not going to be able to be done by this. And so we all agreed that as long as the Arts Commission had submitted these policies to the Metro Council office, we say this deadline has been met. So there was considerable discussion that happened between the involved parties in December, a multi-hour meeting in person about what needs to be done to ensure this work be completed in a timely way. On December 5th, the Arts Commission approved a slate of policies. I'm going to do a deep dive into that in the second part of my remarks here. But that was on December 5th, the last Arts Commission meeting. And the task between December 5th and January 6th was to operationalize those policies to get them updated in the guidelines submitted to the Metro Council. MHRC had agreed to sign on as a department signatory. There's a space for that in legislation to signal our support for completing the requirements of the conciliation agreement and just for continuing to show that we are a partner in this work. But I unfortunately did not get those documents to review until 3 p.m. on last Friday afternoon, when ideally signatures would have been collected by that day. And when I did open up the documents to review them, there was just a lot of errors, decisions that had been authorized by the Arts Commission, many of which we wrote to them the previous month about the importance of some of those decisions in the letter that we had sent to them. Those policy decisions that had been authorized by the Arts Commission were not in the paperwork that was being submitted to create legislation. to guide the distribution of millions of dollars of tax funds via these grants. And so we shared some of this with you over email, and we also felt it important to share with the Arts Commission as the governing body that is responsible ultimately for this policy, just some of the work that had to go into correcting the documents. I spent a lot of time doing that. Metro Legal spent a lot of time doing that. I do want to say it was submitted on January 6th. And so that deadline was met. And the policy package is still needs a little bit of work. And so you see the last thing on the screen here is just that the Arts Commission has had to call some special meetings on Wednesday and Thursday of this week to address some of the deficiencies in the legislation. And so, Davey, do you want to add to this before I move on?
Other than from day one, and even our interaction with you as a commission, your resoluteness about compliance with it. Again, this agreement left many things unanswered. So what we did agree upon, and even at your insistence at various times, that it is lived up to and complied. All along the way, I can't say how many times we have appeared at the Arts Commission, often doing public comments to address concerns as they have gone along. But as Ashley said, I hope that we are nearing the end of this with this last major piece.
Yeah, and I would just say an additional reason why, building on what Davey just said, we've been so diligent about some of these deadlines is that in August, when the Arts Commission authorized the conciliation agreement, it was really stressed and emphasized that these deadlines are very achievable. It's what's good for impacted community organizations and individual artists who are really waiting for this policy to be put into place. And so being persistent about these deadlines is protecting our work as a commission. It is protecting the Metro government who entered this conciliation agreement together, and it's really what is best for the impacted communities as well. And so with that, I'm going to jump in. This is kind of changing modes a little bit here, but I want to do an overview of what happened on December 5th at the Arts Commission. If I'm looking at my phone, I'm just going to be aware of time. I'm going to try to probably spend about 10 minutes on this. And for informational purposes, both for your commission, if it adds anything for the arts commissioners in the room and for anybody watching as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the allocation between Thrive and operating grants, and then a deep dive into each one. And I want to just say that all the information presented in these slides was compiled by me. It was not reviewed by any other departments. Any errors are my own. I did this based on public information or data and information that I've collected along the way. So just where we're starting, there's approximately $3.2 million budget appropriated to Metro Arts for this fiscal year. There were 201 Thrive applicants and 109 general operating applicants. And you can see the requested funds far exceeds the available budget by about $6 million. So we've been here before, right? It was similar in the last fiscal year. This just shows as sort of context where the numbers compare to previous years. And so we know we've talked about several times before how in fiscal year 2024, that was when there was a big increase in the both Thrive and general operating grantees. And so you see in 2025, those numbers have additionally increased as well. particularly with the number of Thrive applications doubling more or less. The only thing that I would note is that the first two columns here, 2023 and 24, are awardees because the applications have not been scored and evaluated yet. These are just applicants versus awardees. So likely these numbers will go down a bit, but you still see the numbers of people requesting Metro Arts funds continue to rise. So the allocation between the two grant programs, so there's $3.2 million. The staff recommendation was originally to allocate $900,000, which is about 28% to the Thrive program. The Arts Commission decided to increase that. We've talked about Thrive a lot before, and so the Commission, because of everything that has happened and the commitment to and the interest in funding Thrive at higher levels than has been historically funded, made a decision to increase the Thrive allocation to 40%. So how does that compare to previous years? You see in FY23, 94% went to operating grants. So those are 501c3 arts-specific nonprofits. Right here, without going into detail, in July and August of FY24, that was the events that led us to here. The first vote in July allocated about 37% to Thrive and 63% of funds to general operating grants. That vote was struck down, and the prevailing vote in August allocated 21% of the budget to Thrive and 79% to operating. So when you come down to FY25, you see this split of 60-40 really puts the Thrive allocation back at what 3% more than what it would have been in that first July vote. So thinking about percentage-wise, what the Commission authorized last month is similar in proportion to the July vote. All right, I'm going to talk about general operating grants a bit. So again, these are for arts-focused nonprofits. That is the same criteria as the previous year. Some of these guidelines, I'm not going to go into in depth, but these are the guidelines that was passed. It's unfortunately a very short spending period because we're so late in the fiscal year. There will be midpoint check-ins and there will be auditing up to 10% of the grants. And the funding formula is really the main thing, right? How is the funding distributed among applicants? And so this is the funding formula that was authorized in December. I'm going to read the first budget point, and I have it quoted here. It says, access to resources and funding is a privilege. By honoring budget size in the formula, there is acknowledgement that smaller organizations have less access to resources and funding and require greater support of their total operating budget. So that's really like the theory undergirding this table that you see where percentage-wise, the smaller your organization is, the more you can ask for in your grant request. And this is also a lot about right-sizing awards. So if you look at the historical data, you might have two organizations that are about the same budget size, but their grants may widely vary. And so it's about right-sizing awards based on this theory that smaller organizations need higher percent. So where does this come from? This is a screenshot from the December 2022 board packet. We have referred a lot to December 2022. What does that mean? It means that commissioners went through a long community engaged process that led to this theory that, again, I'm going to just read this line here. It says, in the previous year, 20 large and mid-sized organizations operating over $500,000 received 80% of Metro Arts funds, while the remaining small organizations received 20%. So by structuring the grant program and stratifying based on size, the impact of that would be what you see here in this second one, where the distribution to small organizations goes from 20% up to 32%. So by being very intentional about size, applying the numbers that way, you're allocating greater dollars to small organizations. So that's where it came from. That's what we're doing. Not we, That's what the Arts Commission is doing this year again. So this funding formula that was authorized in December, it awards funds in alignment with the budget percentage for funding categories scaled to the budget that is allocated and available to operating grants. And so I say that the difference between right now and that July 2023 vote is that this uses a uniform scale versus what I'm calling a preferential scale based on budget size. So I won't go into that, but that's what's different. I can explain more if you need, but I'm not going to get in the weeds. So I just wanted to check in my time. I wanted to just sort of show what this looks like by example. So in this chart, I've just randomly selected an organization of every size, micro through large. So you see here how you would calculate what it would mean for fully funding an organization. And so it calculates that out based on those percentages. You can look at it for different sizes. And then we do a little bit of simple math. Knowing that the commission authorized 60% of the budget to operating grants, we divide that by what it would be to fully fund every organization based on this formula, and we come up with a percent. Right now it is estimated to be 31.9%. You multiply that by everyone for full funding, and that's how you get your tentative grant amount. This spreadsheet is available online, so it's really important to say that these estimates are subject to change based on how the scoring applications go, based on just verifying the information is correct. So if anybody has been looking at that spreadsheet, it's subject to slight change, but not major change. And so just real quick, why does this work? This model works no matter what the grant's budget is or the operating allocation, because it's really designed to move toward full funding. You can change what the budget is at any time and the math still works out. It's flexible to account for any number of applications in any size. And it ensures that every organization that receives an eligible score is funded. So versus like a rank order, right, where some get funded and some don't. And so this broadens access based on eligibility, based on this equity framework. And for organizations, it allows for relatively consistent planning year after year. So that's a pro as well. So the key difference from the last cycle, when we look at what the highest awards was, it was almost $200,000. Right now, the estimated largest award for an operating grant is $63,000. And so it's really about distributing what is available. So this is how it looks like when you want to see the percentages between different organizations. Again, I wanted to do a side-by-side of the desired impact of that December 2022 policy, because this is really the first time it's being implemented. And just to use similar visuals, you see that this model is actually allocating 39% above and beyond the intended 32% in the original model for 2022. So this model is giving a greater percentage. It's drawing those fundings down to the smaller organizations. So I'm on to Thrive now, and I am noticing I've been talking for 10 minutes already. So I'm just going to keep talking because that's what we got to do. So the Thrive criteria and guidelines, I'll just go to this slide. We had sent a letter to the Arts Commission really expressing our desire to keep murals and other public art projects included in Thrive, to not exclude nonprofit organizations, which were some of the proposals that were being brought to the commission. And so we are thankful that the commission did make that decision. So the yellow is just showing that they did include these things, which we asked them to do in the criteria and guidelines, and it's just keeping it consistent from the year before. A lot of the grant deadlines, it's the same as the operating guidelines, but this year, Thrive applicants who are not a 501c3 nonprofit will be required, pending council approval, to use a fiscal agent. We've talked about this a bit before, and this comes out of the working group that was put up of representatives of myself and Metro Legal, Metro Finance, the artist community, and Metro Arts. without going into things that we've talked about in past meetings, we know that the funding mechanism for Thrive that has been used for the last 10 years is not viable. Through this process and other processes, it was just shown that the procurement method that had been used is not available or appropriate to use moving forward. And so the solution that the working group came up with is to use a fiscal agent, often fiscal sponsor language, same idea. Applicants are able to use their own fiscal sponsor that they identify, a nonprofit. If they don't have a relationship like that with any nonprofits, there will be a resource guide that is put together by Metro Arts that has identified organizations that are willing to serve this role. Those organizations, those fiscal agents, are able to charge up to a 10% administrative fee. However, they are not required to charge a fee, nor are they encouraged to charge a fee. We understand the negative impact that does have on artists' budgets. And so because of this change, among other changes, applicants will be required to resubmit their applications if their projects have changed, and to submit these two key documents. One on the left is a fiscal agent agreement, which is between Metro and the nonprofit organization that is just essentially declaring the relationship. On the right is a letter of agreement, which is an agreement between the fiscal agent and the applicant. So this, it's about 2.5 pages, is just a guide to make sure that every party has talked about the things that they need to make decisions on what that fee is, if there is a fee. Will the artists get all the money up front, or would they like a different disbursement schedule? Making sure that everybody knows what deadlines are associated with the grant and such. This is modeled, of course, on common fiscal sponsor examples that are used elsewhere. And so just briefly, I wanted to say, and you have a much longer handout in front of you. I don't need to show you it. You have it in your packet. This is the deliverable that the working group has put together to show our work. We talk a lot about wanting to know the rationale behind our recommendations. And so we did consider 3 other options, partnering with one nonprofit to manage all of the awards instead of the individualized fiscal agent rollout, converting Thrive to a fellowship, or pursuing legislative changes to Metro or state law. For the reasons on the screen and detailed at length in your document, we did not think that any of these were viable if we wanted to have Thrive grants this year, this fiscal cycle, right now, just for time and other logistic purposes. So this kind of gets to the last thing that I want to, yes.
So on the that slide.
Yes.
So are these things that are off the table or just off the table for this year?
So our recommendation that the Arts Commission did approve on December 5th, that now goes to council for ultimate approval, was the individual fiscal sponsorship.
Right.
These are the other things that could have merit, but based on the timeline and the constraints and the environment and the conditions that we are working on, we did not think that any of these would lead to the best outcome for this year.
Thank you.
And when I say this year, it is a fiscal year. So the grants have not been authorized yet, and we're already running up against the end of the fiscal year, which is June 30th. So every day that we don't have completed policy is taking away from that grant period. So we feel like this is really the best option right now that balances the ability to have these very diverse Thrive projects about all different types of projects and community work with the restrictions that we are in right now. So the last thing that I have here is about the funding formula. So the operating grants, that was that percentage by budget size. For Thrive, it's treated a little differently, right? The original application allowed for applicants to request up to $20,000. The commission authorized last month a $10,000 maximum award amount. So we know that there are a lot of Thrive applicants, but we also don't know how many will resubmit their application with project adjustments, with the fiscal sponsor information. just putting in the work to resubmit the applications after all this uncertainty, like, I feel pretty sure that there will likely be attrition, that not all of those applicants will resubmit everything. And so because of the increased Thrive allocation at $1.3 million, which I'm very supportive of, but with the funding cap, it really makes it a possibility that there could be a surplus of Thrive, which is not what we want. So I know that that is one thing that the Arts Commission is considering at their grants meeting and then commission meeting later this week. I think that there are really two ways forward, and I'm going to express what we think is the better of the two options. One would just be to redistribute this surplus to all or some Thrive applicants. So simple. If there's a surplus, divided by everyone, or identify some of everybody. That's one method. The second method is that the commission could rescind this funding formula and pass a new funding formula. So some feedback that I've heard is, cutting a project budget. Oh, did I miss something? Cutting a project budget in half could have negative impacts on projects. And so knowing that the application allowed for $20,000, but only being able to have $10,000, because these are project grant requests versus operating grant requests, right? The way that you operationalize those grants and use them for your work is very different. So the commission could choose what I've called a percent and rank scoring funding formula. For example, that they could fund all eligible projects at 75% of their requests and then just rank order them and award funds until the funds are depleted. So that allows more integrity to the project budget and would be responsive to some of that community feedback that we design projects at this much higher amount and funding is hard to come by, and a higher amount would have more integrity to the project. So that's one thing that is before the Arts Commission this week. And so I do think the second option is better. If anyone were to ask me my opinion, that's my opinion. We are, of course, supportive of whatever the commission comes up with. There could be a third, more creative option as well. So in summary, this is just all the grants, Thrive and operating put together. You can look at this. You can make your conclusions of it. When we look at Thrive through the medium organizations, that's a fair amount. That looks like about 2/3. So again, really thinking this Title VI complaint came to us saying there was intentional policies put in place to move more resources to those who are historically underfunded, which tend to be your Thrive artists, which tend to be your smaller organizations, because we know when we look at the historical data, the lion's share of the funding has been going to the same dozen or so organizations over time. And so any policy objectives that are really increasing funding to those at the bottom of the scale is the way that we change that. And so this is what that looks like in a graphic. That was my Metro Arts overview of the policies. And so these are just the next steps above us or ahead of us. Again, this goes to the Metro Council for them to approve. We pointed out in our Title VI report that the Metro Code says that the council should be approving the criteria of the grants, and that had not been done since 2001. So this council approval is one thing that has emerged from all of the work that this commission and this commission staff has done in the last year and a half. And so that is my last slide. Again, I appreciate the arts commissioners who are in the room. I appreciate our legal counsel, Mel, who has supported us through this, the many of you who have supported us through this. And Davey, do you have anything to add?
No, I just want to thank you again for spearheading this work on our behalf. I also want to thank Mel for coming in alongside of us, giving us and creating us what I think is a great argument. But first of all, greatest of all is the support that this commission has given us all the way through this process to get to this point. I'm excited about where it is, and we're trying to get it over the hill so that we can go on and do something else. But I also want to thank Tessa Ortiz, one of the legal reps from Metro Legal, who has also been actively involved in trying to help assure that the end products are arguably a fairer, more equitable distribution of public resources. And so as we're looking at this, that's what we're trying to come away with. That is this more equitable than what the processes were before the Title VI complaint was entered. And I would say at this point, most definitely so. Can it be better? Can it be tweaked? Yes, but I would say that it is a much more equitable use of public funds that spreads the widest. And I really think it'll be later where the significance of what this work has done to this whole process in our city.
Yes, Commissioner Coleman.
A very quick question. Because as you were talking, I had questions, and then you would go to the next slide and answer my questions. So thank you so much. It was exceptional. My only question is, can an organization or a person get both the operating grant and the Thrive grant? Is that a possibility, or is there some stipulation that you can only get one?
So that is a policy decision that the commission decided you can only be eligible for one. So it was last year where the policy was otherwise, and then that was the group that we had to really advocate for through the conciliation agreement. That was one of the groups of 13 organizations, the micro and small organizations that receive funding through the agreement. Those numbers are on the chart as well, so you can see the dollar amount that we're talking about. But given the restricted budget, the commission did decide somebody has to choose one or the other.
Commissioner Chauber.
I have a question, and I can't recall which slide it was on, but it was where you were discussing the allocations, and there was a staff recommendation for the allocations that had a small allocation to Thrive, and then the Arts Commission ultimately decided to have a larger allocation. Do you recall why the staff wanted a smaller allocation? It seems like there's some dislike among the staff and why they wanted a smaller allocation to Thrive.
So $900,000 is what was authorized in August, and so I can't speak for someone else, of course, but when you look at the dollar amount and not the percentage, the numbers tell you different things, right? So I think the rationale was, well, it was $900,000 last year. Let's show that our commitment to that is the same, or it's not less, and so that's where they said $900,000. But that's also why I started with this slide, because the increase for Thrive has really continued to increase. And that's the result of really intentional community engagement and community processes, right? And so I think the commission, again, I shouldn't speak for other people who are in the room.
Yeah,
but
that's what I would say, that if one of the commissioners wouldn't mind answering that, I think they could be better suited for answering the possible whys.
Yeah, because, I mean, it appears, I mean, if we're just looking at dollars, right, that doesn't tell the accurate picture. The accurate picture would be the allocation. Because just because you give me $900,000 this year, that's what you get me last year, but it's a smaller percentage. I take the higher percentage than the smaller dollar amount, or the same dollar amount, excuse me.
So is it, if any commissioners, I think two of the commissioners that suggested a higher allocation are in the room.
And I only raise it too because it appeared that for historical context, there always appeared to be some issues with the staff, even when the prior executive director was there, and maybe some dislike for the Thrive program. And what I'm wondering is that dislike still there, and it's evidence in what the staff recommended versus what the Arts Commission Arts Commission ultimately approved?
Well, I'll answer that. Yes, there have been issues with the staff. We've chronicled them to you, and we've sent you correspondence, and it kind of came to the head at the end of this deadline that the information that was submitted was woefully inadequate to ensure our concern with the finished product. So yes, we even during this process, the commission, if you look at the end product, came in and actually chose the more equitable decisions to make. At one point, the suggestion by staff was the continuation of 10% auditing for the operating grants, but they suggested 35% auditing for the Thrive, which automatically has some baseline assumptions that you want to ask, why would that be necessary? And so, yes, that has been part of this to get it to this point, and to just say it, what is being presented, what will ultimately be presented in the final documents are being compiled and put together primarily by Ashley and Tessa Ortiz. So yes.
Well, thank you for that, because I mean, that's exactly what I was getting to. And to make a point, it would seem that I understand the interim executive director resigned last Friday, but it appears that there needs to be some attitude changes among staff, or potentially some attitude changes among staff, and how they view the various awardees that receive public funding.
To play peacemaker or devil's advocate, I will say that the administration of Thrive grants can be higher. I don't know that because of the number and the small amount. And having administered $2 million in small grants, I know that with new organizations or nascent organizations or individuals that are just getting started on a new thing like activists, there is a lot of hand-holding, capacity building in areas that are not what anybody signed up for. I've actually worked with, I don't know if she's a Thrive or operating grant recipient, that I love very much, a nascent organization, very impactful, but didn't know anything about budgeting, finance, reporting, program proposals, all the pain in the butt stuff. And I was, advising them, supporting them just as a volunteer. And that stuff is so needed and I understand the resistance towards fiscal agents, but I understand the requirement of fiscal agents, and I see why y'all landed that, because this is, some of it federal money, some of it local money, and the fiduciary responsibility is extremely high. And if you don't have experience in some of this budgeting and all this crap, because it's hard, the reporting is a pain in the butt, even for $3,000 measly dollars, it's a pain in the butt. So now, I don't know the stuff, I don't know that, but I just want to put that out there. That we are balanced in the way that we looked at these things, and that we understand the way that we look at these things, that there can be on both sides, both on the recipient of like an artist that just wants to make a mural for $3,000 and now has to have receipts, and when they spent on the painting, what they spent on this, if they brought another artist in, all that. And here's what came up for me, and that report was excellent, and I appreciate it so much. What came up for me, and this might be seen totally differently might be received completely differently because I don't know the players, is there, you get a document at like 3 p.m. on a Friday that's inadequate. To me, that indicates there's an ED that's gone. There's been an ED that was gone before that. There was an ED that was gone before. To me, that indicates just a lack of capacity. One, for the equitable stuff, that is its own body of information and knowledge and all that. Another for the allocation stuff. And the other for the standard of information and policy that y'all are expecting, which seems to be a very good and high standard. What you created on January 6th is quality work. And so I guess what I'm wondering is for us to really be able to sign off and move out of this, what's the plan to develop capacity within the new ED, and I understand staff may not even, like you said, it could be behavioral and they're like, peace out, we don't want to deal with you and we don't want you to develop any of our capacity. We don't need development of capacity, or commissioners of like, clearly there's a way to do this. We're clear on what that is. That we're not getting it. This is where it's like the educational piece comes in, and maybe it's a non-starter conversation, but I got to put it out there. For the recipients, we used to have grant management seminars for these brand new activists, and they don't know anything about this stuff. We'd walk them through it. So by the end of the year, they understood. And when the audit came, they had their receipts. They had it's onerous. It's a pain in the butt. But so, anyways, that's my annoying rant. Love y'all.
Well, if I can just answer briefly to that, except for the year when all of the stuff happened with the July and August, Arts had been processing $2 and $3 million worth of grants every year. So for me, capacity is not the issue.
But it's the number of grantees. When that number goes up and you have 200 applicants, that's a bigger pain in the butt than if you have 5.
Well, this is true.
That's not
Okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Ashley, and then Charles. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I just want to say, I hear you, and I know what it's like to be a new Metro employee as someone who's been here for about 2.5 years myself. But at the same time, I made a point to say at the beginning of this that when we all signed this conciliation agreement, we talked about how achievable these deadlines were. I've talked with you all about the lack of engagement with the artist community, who went 9 months without hearing a word from Metro Arts about the status of their grant. Every deadline, we had to be the ones checking in, saying, hey, what's the plan? What's the progress? What's the status? And instead of, I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, but assuming that the people responsible for carrying the work out would want to be informing us and letting us know that the deadlines and progress is being made, right? And so not having ever received any we're very reasonable people. We've been very patient throughout all this, but just the continued not really having a reason for not having progress, right? And so that's like the part that's just kind of been a mystery to me throughout this. And so where is it in the middle of those two things, right? There's never just one truth. But yeah, go ahead.
Well, and just in response to Commissioner Albofazi, who I appreciate very much. Right. Well, and I don't know the players either. And your comments, well taken. But, and what I was trying to get to, I mean, I would assume, and maybe I shouldn't assume, there's an Arts Commission meeting about this recommendation. Staff gives this recommendation, and that recommendation is not, the commission doesn't agree with it. So either the staff gave a response like you gave or gave no response at all. And whatever response was given, the commission determined it wasn't a good response. So, and my question to Ashley or Executive Director Tucker, if they were involved or recall, would be, well, what was the staff's communication about why they recommended a lower allocation? If they said what you said, fine. Maybe they didn't say anything at all. Whatever they said, it was overruled. And because we know there have been a history of issues with the executive director and staff, it just leads to the question of what Executive Tucker explained, and maybe what could still be going on, is that there is some discontent related to the Thrive program for whatever reason that, may require or may call for some attitude adjustment.
I'll just add that the July vote brought up, the rescinding of the vote brought up the issue of the mechanism by which Thrive grantees would receive the funding because they're not a 501c3 organization, not because of the capacity of accounting. So that's the state law that's in question. So it's a little bit different. But Commissioner McKinney, thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you for the report, Ashley. And my question is about, I'm really curious as to whether or not there is administrative funding available either in the operating grant or the Thrive grant to help do some of the work. I agree with a lot of things that have been said around here. Grant management is not intuitive and it's not always easy. It's hardly ever easy unless you really know what you're doing. And I heard you mention at the top of your presentation for 2025, we're still reading proposals. So somebody's got to read, somebody's got to award, somebody's got to disperse the reporting, on and on and on and on and on. The compliance stuff that we're here to talk about, somebody's got to do the work. Are we comfortable that there is enough administrative support, dollars, expertise, or whatever it is that we need to continue the progress?
Yeah, that's really partially what led us to write the letter that you have in your packet and that you've received, because we have concerns about the next part being rolled out. Like, this is just about what should the grant formulas be, not even let's go do them then, right? And so I can't speak to really exactly what you're speaking about, but I know that those conversations are happening, right? I know that the arts commissioners, I assume, all want to ensure that this successfully rolls out, especially given the delays. And so I know there are some ideas being talked about what needs to be in place, getting those contracts ready to go and that kind of thing, and the support throughout, whether that's grant clinics and other sorts of technical assistance along the way.
And we've offered assistance. We continue to offer assistance. And even in the last Arts Commission meeting, Metro Legal reiterated the agreement is legally binding, and that the issues in it, because so often sometimes we felt like this agreement was not being considered as processes to get to awarding grants was moving forward. And we inquired, and finally, on more than one occasion, we reasserted that we didn't feel like we were being heard seriously, because the impact of the Title VI complaint, as we've said multiple times, it does have a carrying forward type thing to change policy in a way that we don't go back to what this situation was.
Ashley, I'm wondering, can you estimate the general number of hours that you have spent supporting the Arts Commission at this point? No, it's a legitimate question, though, and I'm wondering if your work on this has prevented MHRC from doing any work because this staff has had to spend so much time supporting another commission.
I'll answer that. She spent quite a bit. I would say at a minimum, even now, it's at least 30%, and on some days it could be even more than that. But to the point of our commitment when we took forward the Title VI complaint and the agreement that we were able to come away with, our commitment to getting that done, we're going to do what we got to do to make sure that that happens. So, yes, she has spent quite a bit of time, and it does limit us in a couple other things that she would have been working on. But again, to come and to go through all of what we did to get to this point, the agreement meant that all the compromise and negotiation had been done. So here it is, every dot the I, every T, and that's where we are.
And I do think that this is time well spent as it relates to not just helping this specific issue with the Arts Commission, but with other boards, even as this legal document was created. So I think it's helpful and effective across the board.
Okay, Professor. Commissioner Coleman and then Commissioner Teague.
We keep going back to the idea that this is a contract with legal, us, and the arts commissions. And obviously, if anyone breaches a contract legally, there are implications, but I don't hear any, and every time we meet about this, it seems as though someone in the arts world, in the arts commission, is not meeting a deadline or not giving communications, whatever it is. But there's never been any adverse implications, and now we're to those seemingly breaches of the contract, and so now we're at a point where this entire program needs to be handed off to a group which some people think don't even like the program, so that's not setting it up for success. But what are the adverse implications as to if we determine that they're not following this contract? Like, what's going on here?
Well, from the beginning, our process would have required, if we had not have reached this agreement, we were moving toward holding a public hearing. And from the public hearing, there's a couple other things that could happen. And so even we have acted in good faith when we've not been a cause of a breach, and found ways to move past that with the assurances that things would get done. And so that's how we have moved. I've made those decisions so as not to, again, escalate this to a point where it becomes unproductive. And so, again, I think we can see the end line, but to your point, I also believe that the commissioners, again, some that are here, are committed to the equitable distribution of public resources, in listening to them in meetings, even to Commissioner Trauber's point of being presented information by staff and basically changing quite a bit of it. So in that respect, I have great confidence in what the commission will ultimately do and approve. That's my opinion.
Okay, I think, yes.
And I think that they're going to have to do whatever to handle staff.
I guess that's kind of my question, and I agree with you that obviously the commission wants a more equitable distribution, as we saw on the slide. I guess it is more towards how are we evaluating and holding the Arts Commission then to the standards that they've agreed to in the contract, and what happens if they don't. I guess maybe I'm being too litigation lawyerly in my thought or parenting, because I'm just like, I see no.
There's a distinction between staff and commission.
Yes, and I'm sorry if I'm speaking too broadly, but I feel like you've been so flexible, and I feel like the people who know the players don't feel very comfortable necessarily handing over the Thrive program, because we don't know what to expect, and that is scary that we will then be back in the same process, and a year or two down the road. And in order to not have that happen, what are the implications to whoever is breaching?
Well, again, I think the commission has made a major commitment toward fixing this. There's been a change, quite a bit of change from when this started with commissioners. The council itself has expressed concern about this. As Ashley mentioned, the new Apple chair, Councilwoman Gadd, is holding a meeting also. They want our opinion and approval on this. We've been offering it all along. So, but I would agree. I don't want to breach it to where we have to have a public hearing. And I can give you multiple reasons. That's the thing.
Okay, I guess that's my. I'm so sorry. That's the thing, is if it gets breached to a certain extent, we just, it has to go to a public hearing and that's the end. That's the end. Got it. I guess that was my question and I didn't understand that. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Teague?
I think my question is kind of a bridge between what Commissioner Coleman and Commissioner Trauber has been saying. If there are people on the staff who need an attitude adjustment, I applaud what the commissioners have done in increasing the funding. But it does kind of concern me that if there is some attitude adjustment that needs on the staff, how are we supposed to have any great deal of confidence in this process that's going to be rolling out over the next couple of months, that it's going to be done fairly and without... Oh, I'm sorry. Is it not working? Oh, sorry. The light's on. I thought it was working. I'm sorry. So is that different? Okay. If I lean in really close, how about that? Now I've lost my train of thought. So how do we have any confidence that people who might need an attitude adjustment are going to carry out this process that the Arts Commission has now said, this is what we're going to do, this is the level of funding that we're going to do it at, that they're going to carry it out fairly and justly? And I'm not, that's not accusing any staff member of it, but if there is...
Again, Commissioner Teague, I hear you, and I can assure you that everyone in Metro who needs to know those intricacies and all of that are well aware. The commission, the Arts Commission, has a new chair, Campbell West, who, even in listening to her, I think she's going to also, with the commission, again, I guess, as Commissioner Coleman said, something to the effect that I'm always hopeful or aspirational or whatever. But I am. Because we're not going to go away. And we've made that clear all along that when the policies, if you can't justify what equity means through some theoretical process, if you can't quantify it against something else, then you have a problem. You have to be able to tell clearly why. And so those things are going to be part of it. We've ensured that those things are part of what these formulas are going forward. In that, again, Ashley and Tessa have been the primary architects. So I believe the product is there. And I also think that there's a level of commitment with the present construction of the Arts Commission that I think they're going to get it.
And I just would like to add to that. I think that what we can do is what we're doing, which is bringing awareness to it. The only way that you're going to change a problem is keep bringing it up, talking about it until you come to a solution. We don't have the power to change attitudes necessarily, and we don't even know what attitudes may need to be changed. But talking about it and laying down how we feel that it should be pursued or seen, which is what we believe the public would agree with, I think is what will push us in the right direction.
If the chair might want to recognize any arts commissioners who might...
Yes, I recognize any art commissioner who wants to speak.
Commissioner Jester.
Thank you. My name is Tim Jester. I'm a Metro Arts Commissioner. And I just wanted to say to the point about staff, I do think that concerns are well-founded given the history and what's happened. I would say that the answer to that is that it's incumbent on this commission to be very diligent in hiring an ED moving forward who has a mind to equity, who understands the history, even if we have to bring them up to speed historically, and who's willing to continue leaning into the work that we're doing. Former Executive Director Daniel Singh was incredible at pushing a lot of the equity work that happened. That needs to be acknowledged. Unfortunately, he was not good at running an office, and that's evidenced by the audit that came out. And so there had to be some transitional period. We need to bring in an ED who has the same vision and who's willing to move into the same direction that we're moving. And so just to answer your question, I understand your concerns. They're well-founded. But our job moving forward while we continue in this vein is to find an executive director who is also of the same mind, who can manage an office in such a way that we can be worthy of $20 million from the Metro budget, and not just 3.2.
Thank you, Commissioner Jester. Yes.
One more kind of specific question for Ashley. You mentioned in the presentation that there may be like a fee that goes to fiscal agents, and does that fee come out of the artist's award, or is it paid by the grant?
It does. It will come out of the artist's grant, so it is to be agreed upon by the two artists and the fiscal agent when they decide to enter that relationship. Like I said, a fee is not required. I know in the conversations that I've had with nonprofits, I don't like asking anyone to do free labor, right? But really explaining the situation, that it is not the fault of the artist, that this new requirement is being put on them. And a lot of people who are able to serve that role understand that, right? And so like having an honest conversation about it, like I said, it's not required to have a fee. And I also want to say that there is going to be, I believe, we want to be very transparent moving forward in this process. And so I anticipate that Metro Arts will be putting out information around like info sessions about all of this, just trying to make sure that, things happen in daylight and not in darkness, because of questions around fees and...
Yeah, I don't think artists should have to pay that. Especially if the Thrive Grant is budgeting toward a surplus, which you also mentioned in your presentation. Pay for that out of the grant.
You're giving an interesting on-the-spot policy potential. So, administratively, it would have to be figured out how it works. But if there's a way to identify what those fees are, maybe that comes out of another line that's created in the grant budget. But I'm not qualified to speak on the spot about that. But I think that's an idea that lots of people just heard about.
Okay, thank you.
Well, and to your point, Commissioner, and Ashley can attest that there was a lot of discussion around the very same issue. I also had a point, and again, it's what conciliation makes you do, because to me, the last one in is the one who gets $10 and have to spend $1 for it. And so fundamentally, I've always had an issue with it, but after reading the document showing that the Metro Code says this, that, and the other, the state code says that you can't do it, and even as you listen to Ashley and them, they're actually trying to work with other nonprofits who would do it for nothing or at a reduced cost. And I think going forward that there should be some way of looking at that or even budgeting for that. So yes, that has been talked about quite a bit, and it was a major point of contention for me.
In your packet, this is one of the things that would be a benefit of using one nonprofit organization instead of potentially 60 different fiscal sponsors, is that can be standardized, right, and handled on the Metro Arts side instead of the artist side. There's a lot of reasons why we didn't go that route. They're detailed in the packet that you have, but on a longer planning sort of roadway for the next fiscal year, I do believe that conversation will be revisited, but just under, again, the current conditions, it wasn't possible.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. I just wanted to reiterate that point that the Arts Commission now has to get this year's funding out, and they have to do whatever it takes to get it out now, and then they will replan or refigure things out for future funding, which is a whole different buzz. Again, thank you, Ashley. Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
Sorry, this was be short because it's just an affirmation of that. I mean, I've stated, I think even the last time we were in this building to have a meeting, my ambivalence at best around a model that requires these fees to come from artists. However, I also understand that the window is shorter and shorter for something that should have been done months and months and months ago. This is a new requirement. The horse is out of the barn. I'm not big on having the agents, period. Certainly not big on the fees, but where we are in this process, given what Executive Director Tucker said about, I mean, the law's there. Now, how do we work into the reality that we have now? This seems like, I won't say reasonable, but it seems like the most expeditious path forward that is also in some realm of equitable under these just let's be honest, really pretty terrible circumstances that we find ourselves in to try to get this done, to get funding of any type, of any amount out to the artists. And to the point, a question that I asked had written down early on was how we look at these models how these models need to be re-looked at once we're not dealing with this pressure cooker of time and expediency to try to get folks something. And I think that the questions that you're asking are absolutely appropriate, and they need to be addressed once we get to that place where we actually have some time to really develop a robust model that serves both equity and getting funding out to folks.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. I wanted to ask if any of the arts commissioners, thank you for joining us on this evening and spending your Monday with us. If you have any comments or questions or anything else you'd like to add.
Hi, good evening, I guess. My name is Trey Harden. I'm the Vice Chair of the Metro Arts Commission. I don't have too much to comment on specifically, but I do appreciate you all for bringing up some of the things that you've brought up. They are a lot of things that we've discussed and I've thought about myself. I know this week will be very important for us as we set ourselves up to accomplish these grants moving forward. And I want to thank a lot of people, but specifically Mr. Tucker and Ashley for their work, and especially Tessa in the back. And I'm hoping to meet with Ashley this week, and we're constantly kind of looking at the situation, the questions you're bringing up about the feasibility of actually running the grants program is definitely in front of mind. I think we all agree that we're very close to policy decisions and kind of confident that we'll meet that benchmark for the conciliation agreement as it is today. But yeah, those are definitely challenges that we're facing, and I think we don't collectively have an answer at this moment, but that's the work that is at the forefront of our minds right now. So thank you all for reiterating some of that, and yeah, you're welcome to reach out to me if you have questions, and yeah, obviously tune into the commission meetings if you haven't already. But yeah, that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mel, fellow Green, for being here, and Tessa Ortiz, thank you for being here as well. I think that's it for that item on the agenda. And now we have announcements. Commissioner Johnson, do you have an announcement?
I guess this falls more in the realm of commissioner concerns than direct announcement, but I just do want to put on the table for both the staff and for my fellow commissioners that I was a little disappointed by the lack of great response for our houseless and those experiencing homeless community this last weekend, when the shelters had no plans to help house and keep folks warm and safe in a weather event that we saw coming for days and had increased certainty about for days. And yet the response was, well, we stayed open 2 extra hours. Isn't that enough? It can come back in a bit. And it just seemed like for all the attention, for all the funds that we're putting towards creating some safety net underneath our community members that are experiencing houselessness, that we really stumbled and seemed to be caught out on the back foot on a situation that we had eyesight and increased clarity on what the concern and risks would be with the amount of snow, with the amount of cold going into Friday into Saturday, and that we didn't have good answers in the moment. And I just wanted to put that on the table before the rest of the commissioners here, and then also just to put in front of our staff as well too. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Thank you for the comment. That is one of the things that I'd like to take up is public safety and rethinking it in the ways that we have with previous hearings and meetings that we've had. And this is one of the things that I'd like to address in the upcoming meetings. Is there any other announcements? Okay, I think that's it. If I could have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move to adjourn.
A second? Second. Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? I think we all say yay. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.